And a knee
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I also like to take a moment in remembrance of our troops fallen and serving abroad and here. Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm going to ask all our candidates if you can just have a seat up on the stage.
See, now you don't have to worry about how. Sitting next to me.
We have enough chairs, or we need to get more? All right, we're going to get started. The first, we're going to start off with the gentleman who's running for district court judge. According to the rules that he has to follow, he can only speak about his background and cannot answer any questions specifically regarding his position on any specific topic. So we'll start with him, so it'll be nice, short, and sweet. And then we'll have everybody else introduce themselves. And despite our request to have people submit their questions beforehand, we only received two covering the same topic. So I'll summarize that question to start it off, which will, start off with a bang.
Hi, how are you? My name is Al Graff, and I'm running for district court judge. It's nice to be back. Before redistricting, I was actually the assemblyman for the Bohemia area. So I remember coming to a lot of the civic organization meetings. We passed out a card. Everybody get one? And for the district court, all I'm allowed to do is really talk about my background. And what happens is I bring my background to the court, and hopefully I bring some common sense. But my background is I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a retired New York City police officer. I was also a two-term town supervisor. And I have a law degree from Toro College, Toro Law School. Since graduating law school, I worked for the Legal Aid Society for a couple of years, and then I started my own law practice, and I've been practicing law ever since. On top of that, I'm a sitting New York State Assemblyman, and for the last 7 years, I've been on the Codes Committee that writes all the laws for the state. And I've been on the Judiciary Committee that writes all the laws for the courts. For the last 6 years, I've been the ranking member on the Codes Committee. So one of the things I'm proud of is all the legislation that came through the state, I actually read, all right, as part of my committees, to make sure I knew what the bills said. And I was able to debate a lot of the bills, get a lot of the bills changed. So this is the experience. I'm also a resident of Holbrook. I live there with my 3 children, my wife, and I have my granddaughter now, Mia. So hopefully I can count on your support. I've had your support in the past, and I'm hoping I can get your support coming up for the district court judgeship. Thank you.
Okay, so why don't we only have one mic, so if we can, each of you take the mic and introduce yourself and what you're running for, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Sure.
Okay?
Good evening. My name is Anthony Piccirillo. I'm running for Suffolk County Legislator here in the 8th Legislative District. I'm a lifelong resident of the 8th Legislative District. I was born and raised in Holbrook, New York. I attended Sachem High School, graduated in 2001, and I moved to Dowling College, where I studied history and economics. And now I'm running for Suffolk County Legislator because I believe Suffolk County is in the worst fiscal condition that it's ever been in its entire history. We also have the drug, opioid, and heroin problem. We have a gang problem. and we have a campaign finance problem in Suffolk County. And I look forward to any questions that any of you might have tonight on any of these issues. We have a fine slate of candidates, and I hope we can all answer your questions to the best of your abilities tonight. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jim O'Connor. I live in Great River. I'm the Republican, Conservative, Independence, and Women's Equality candidate for Town Council in the town of Islip. I am against the current proposal to redevelop the Island Hills Golf Course. I think it is too big, too dense, and too aggressive. But worse than any of that, what I have observed is that the developer has not included the community in the process, and I think that's entirely offensive, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Lindsay. I am the current legislator here in the 8th Legislative District. I have been, I've owned a home here in Bohemia for the last 18 years. I have a daughter that is a freshman in high school, a son who's in 3rd grade at John Pearl. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the issues that we are faced with here in Bohemia. Even though it's not a county issue, it is a town issue. The Island Hills development would affect me just as much as anybody else at this point. My kids go to Connecticut schools. I live less than a half a mile away. So I would be impacted just as much as everybody else, except for the people who live directly on the golf course itself. I'm a former member of the golf course. I loved it. It was a beautiful golf course. It's a shame that it did not continue to operate. It was a beautiful place to play golf, and it was I always thought it would be a nice neighbor to have. I have been in office for the last 4 years, and I look forward to answering any questions that you have. Thank
you. Hi, good evening. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm Joe Tronalone. I'm running for Suffolk County Legislator in the 10th District. I'm running on the Democrat, Working Families, and Women's Equality Party lines. I'm a lifelong resident of Islip. I'm a volunteer fireman there for the last 11 years. I have 9 years experience in banking and finance here in Suffolk County. And I have been a math teacher for the last few years at Bremen High School. I'm running because, I feel that Suffolk County is going through a couple of different crises. Obviously, the opioid and heroin epidemic is decimating families here. I see it, every week when I'm talking to the EMTs in my firehouse, they tell me that they're getting calls for overdoses right where I live, and it's devastating. Also, campaign finance reform is an issue I believe that's in every level of government needs to be fixed, and I look forward to doing that as legislator. And finally, I want to address the water quality crisis we have here as well. From the Great South Bay to our groundwater, our streams and our lakes, toxic dumping and nitrogen pollution is really poisoning our water. One of the ways that I justify living here and paying so much to do so is that the Great South Bay, where I grew up on, is absolutely beautiful all year long. And if we keep polluting it away, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go for our drinking water as well? So I look forward to answering your questions. Again, thank you for having me.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Sam Gonzalez. I'm Democrat in Working Families, and I'm running for the Islip Town Council seat. I'm a proud father, grandfather. I'm a member of the Lions, and I'm also a member of the Electrical Caucus. I'm president of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union, Local 1430. And I do want to start off by saying that I am also 110% against the Island Hills project. But I'm also against the wording that they use, that it's too big and too dense. That troubles me. I'm against the project altogether, all right, because we are losing our green space. And that is why I brought my families here. I brought my daughter, and I raised my daughter here because I want to leave Queens. I don't want this to become Queens. And that's what it's becoming. If we allow another 4 more years of what we have right now on the town board, that's what we're going to get. So I want to be absolutely clear that too big, too dense is not in my vocabulary. Let's keep the green that we have. I'm also believing in transparency in our local government. Enough of the backroom deals that are happening at the town board. Whenever there's a meeting at 2 o'clock, which now they've changed, there used to be 2 meetings at 6 p.m., now there's only going to be 1. Again, they don't listen to what we have to say, and it's time for change. I will answer any questions that anyone has here, but it is time. Enough of the backroom deals, enough of the, we need transparency. And that's why I'm running for the Isop Town Board. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Fenley, running for Isop Town Council as well on the Democratic and Working Families line. I want to apologize up front. I have to leave at 8 o'clock. I have another event tonight with some mothers in Bayshore, which I don't want to miss. I apologize up front that I have to leave early, but it is what it is. It's a very busy time of year. I know my opponents and my colleagues can attest to that. I'll give you a quick rundown of my background and then touch on a couple of issues. I'm an attorney. I own my own law office in Bayshore where we focus on commercial matters. I was at a large firm in New York City for about 4 years where I worked on some of the largest infrastructure projects in New York State, including the new Tappan Zee Bridge, One World Trade Center, and East Side Access, which is Long Island Railroad to Grand Central. About 2 years ago, my wife had identical triplet boys. At the time, we already had a 2-year-old. We live in Brightwaters. So I was commuting back and forth to the city every day, working big firm hours. It became untenable to do that with all these little children. So I took a job at a small firm out in Patchogue where I worked with local municipalities like Patchogue and Port Jefferson and local infrastructure matters and just municipal matters. And then late last year, I started my own firm in Bayshore. In addition to being an attorney, I also have an MBA in public finance, so I'm eminently qualified to hold the job of councilman, both on the legal side, the finance side, and just kind of management in general. In terms of why I'm running, I'm really concerned about the affordability issues here on Long Island, where we're going kind of in the future. I have 4 little boys, like I said. I lived in Colorado for 5 years, so I know what other places do, how they keep their governments affordable, how they keep their young people there. It's one of the things I'm very vitally concerned about. And that's why I'm very interested in revitalizing our downtowns and continuing to revitalize our transit-oriented areas. And that's where Island Hills is very problematic to me. It is nothing more than a tricked-up garden apartment. The developer says it's transit-oriented. That's nonsense. It's 1.5 miles from the train station. It's 4 miles from the Oakdale Merge. They want to put 1,371 units there. 1,371 units, and in their own frequently asked questions, they allot 1.75 cars. Do the math. 1,371 times 1.75 equals 2,399 cars, 4 miles from the Oakdale Merge. That is absolutely insane. Not only am I against the proposal, I am against any development the community doesn't want. If they want townhomes, I'll vote for townhomes. If you want open space, I'll vote for open space. If you don't want anything, I'll vote for that. I have nothing in this besides community involvement. That's why I'm running. I'm running for the future and to get communities involved, like my community, things like that. I look forward to answering the questions I can in the next 5-10 minutes here. It was a pleasure to meet with some of you I did before. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Trish Bergen-Whitebroad. I'm your councilwoman currently in the town of Islip. I'm actually running on the Republican, Conservative, Independent, and Women's Equality lines. Very grateful to have the support of all of those agencies. I was also informed today that I have been endorsed by the New York State Troopers Association, the Nassau County Police Department, and the Suffolk County Police Department, because I am a true believer in the idea that blue lives really, really do matter here. We have opioid crisis. We have a lot happening in our communities, and I think law enforcement recognized that I was the right person for this job. I have stood up to big government, even when it's people in my own party. I know you see all of the Newsday articles. I don't have a problem taking on arguments or issues with anybody across the line, Democrat, Republican. If I feel that it's an issue that somebody is not doing the right thing on, I will speak up. I am a girl from this part of town. I grew up in Ronkonkoma. I graduated from Connecticut High School. And I then went on to college, have a master's degree in journalism, and I was a news anchor at News 12 and a news reporter at News 12. Then I went to CBS News for a while, and then I came back to News 12. Long Island is home to me, and Ronkonkoma is near and dear to my heart. I currently live in East Islip. I'm married, and I have 4 children. I spoke actually in this auditorium. We have 3 boys. They're teenagers, and I also have a little 5-year-old girl, and I spoke in this auditorium about becoming a foster mother for anybody who wants to experience that. My husband and I adopted a little girl from foster care, so I sort of reset my parent clock, so now I have a 5-year-old. But I'm very happy to be a part of this community. I know Island Hills is a very big topic for everybody. I think it's a terrible project. It's certainly too large. It's not anything that anybody in the community would like to see. It's not anything that I would ever support. And it's currently zoned for single-family housing. I think we're all from the suburbs. We appreciate living out here in the suburbs. And I think many of us would like to keep it that way. Thank you very much. I will answer any questions that you have.
Okay, I'm going to start off with I'm going to take the 3 questions that were previously submitted. They all deal with, guess what? Island Hills! Okay, so I'm going to address it to the town council candidates. I'm going to basically summarize, and I don't have
You want my reading like this?
So I think you all kind of answered the question that you're against Island Hills, but so one question is specifically what development you would be willing to support, and I believe you've all answered the question that you do not want the 1,300 apartments. I believe one of you said you want to keep it green space. I'll let you each say specifically what you would like in a perfect world if you had the decision-making power to say, we're going to put X here. What would it be?
Okay, so since I currently sit on the board and I probably am more familiar with the issue than my opponents, right now the property is zoned for single-family houses on 1-acre parcels. And the developer could come in and build that tomorrow without needing to get any vote from any board members. That's currently what it's zoned. Would I like to see any development there? No. I mean, we're running out of open space. I would love for it to stay a golf course. But if he chooses to put single-family homes there, that is currently his legal right to do that. So everybody has to understand that. Do I want to see apartments, rental apartments? I don't want to see rental apartments. I would love for it to stay open space. In fact, I had spoken to some of my colleagues on the county level, and we were looking into the idea of writing a letter and approaching the county to see if we can do something where we take the preservation fund money that's at the county level and see if we can use that to buy up the development rights from the developer and make it forever green space. And we have approached the planning board and asked them, and Bill Lindsay is the person who I'm talking about who helped me do some of the research. And we are asking the planning department on the county level if that's an option. And so that's one of the things that we'd like to explore, and that's one of the things that we've been exploring.
So I believe the question is, what would I support? And all I can speak to is the application that's presently before the board, which I do not support. As I mentioned, it is too big, it is too dense, and it is too aggressive. What I hope to do, if ultimately successful a week from Tuesday, is listen to you folks and find out what you would support and what you would like to see in your community. I think that's what a representative is supposed to do, and that's what I intend to do. That is my record when I served for 4 years previously as a councilman in the late 90s. So I want to work with you to listen and to find out what it is that you would support. I'm not going to make any blanket promises and give anybody a blank check, because I'm not in a position to do that. But I will work with you, I will listen to you, and I will advocate for you, because as an attorney for the last 29 years, that's what I do. I advocate for people. And I hope to be able to do it for you. Thanks.
Unfortunately, what I feel is that we have been speaking for many, many years now, and nothing has been heard. Every single time we go to the board and we get in front and we give our opinion, what happens? It goes into one ear and comes out the other. Unfortunately, this has been too much of the past, that right before election time, they come and they say whatever they have to say. And then after they get elected, they go right back into the status quo. It's the same thing over and over and over again. We keep electing the people that actually are not listening. There was a covenant under the Fairway Manor that was supposed to keep that as a golf course or the greenery. And they've tried to foil it, and it's gone. It's disappeared. It's gone. So we're going to continue trusting the same people over and over and over again? I think not. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to start thinking about the future. And the future is not what we've been having here for the last 8 years. It's people like you and I, okay, that are struggling, that are working stiffs every single day. We have a voice here in this town, and none of them are listening. None of them listen. Well, guess what? I'm going to be as transparent as possible when I get into that office, and I'm not going to be someone that's going to be accepted too nicely at the town board. Enough of the backroom deals. I've had it. I've had it. Whenever you come up there, there's already premeditated what they're going to come and do. They keep talking about it's too big, it's too dense. What is that saying? What's the true meaning of that? I'm trying to make it as simple as possible here. What does that mean? That later on, when it's brought down to a certain level, it's to your acceptance? I didn't lie to you when I spoke to you on a day like today. I wasn't lying. Go back to the videotape. It's exactly what was said today. It's too big and it's too dense. It's been used over and over and over again. And I've had enough, just like I know that the community of Islip has had enough. It's your decision. Do you want to believe the status quo? Or do we need to bring in new bodies and new people that are going to listen to what you have to say? And not yes you to death. Because I see it all the time. You got 3 minutes. That's it. You got 3 minutes. And then the ranger comes in with his gun on his side and says, you got 3 minutes. You're gone. You got to go. Next. And they keep passing it on and keep passing it on. When they want to change that zoning, they're going to change it. Because the zoning and the town board are one and the same. I'm going to keep it as real as possible. You're not going to get any changes with the current board. I am not going to allow that, and I do not want any type of development. The problem is that they have too many developers that are putting enough money into their pockets. Do you believe that a guy who's given you a certain amount of money and they are going to say, no, I'm against the development? They're going to say it now. Once they're in office, it's a totally different issue. These developers have given thousands of dollars to their accounts. That's the truth. So again, totally against this. We got to keep transparency. We have to listen and start dialoguing, going out to all the civic associations before they make these plans into making these developments. From day one, you must have all these associations, the civic associations, from day one with any development plans. And guess what? I will try and work with legislation to not allow any developer to develop here if they are donating into their funds. That's got to stop. Because there's too much happening.
I'm gonna have to fight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, that's what I feel, and thank you for listening. Jason?
I think I made clear in my intro that the development that I would be for is what the community wants. And if that's nothing, then it's okay. I'm not really that concerned about regular building single-family homes. They wouldn't have bought the property if they were going to do that. So to the extent that they want to do that, I mean, Mrs. Bergen's correct that they can do that, but I don't think that's really a risk at this point. They want to build 1,371 apartments, and if you do the math, why they want to do that is because it's going to create about, it's going to be about $40 million per year in revenue. $40 million per year. Do the math. $2,500 times 1,371, and then do the math for the monthly rents. They want cash flow. They don't want single-family apartments. So this is a big issue. And Sammy just touched on this. Fairway Manor. In 1991, Fairway Manor was built. It's a 55 plus units out in Bayport. There was a covenant attached to part of that property. This summer, the current board rolled back that covenant, allowing the developer to build 250 additional units. So that was a perfect example. There was green space, and it was actually protected legally with a covenant, and the board rolled it back. So you can't on one hand say you're for protecting open space, and then on the other hand, vote to eliminate it. It's just not truthful, and it doesn't represent the communities, which is all I'm about. Would be running otherwise. And again, I apologize, I have to leave. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor to questions. I'm going to ask that the next question not be about the Island Hills, just so that we can get the county legislatures some speech time as well. So if anyone has a question, if you can come down, because I have a wire that is not very long. Mr. O'Connor, I'm going to have to ask you to get up and come down here so we can hear you.
I think people can hear it from here.
Yeah?
I can hear you. Yeah, it's
Yes. Go for it. My question is geared to everybody in the panel, but it's a statewide question, really. And I know you people are not directly involved with the statewide issue, but I want an explanation of what is this constitutional change that they're talking about. You see all these signs all over the lawns and everything else about voting against any changes to the state constitution. Did you get into details what that is specifically?
Does anyone want to answer that?
I'll talk about it.
You could poll, you still have some.
Okay. So written into our state...
Phil, then I got to follow up.
Sure. Written into our state constitution is a law that says every 20 years, there's a ballot referendum where it's put on the ballot for the voters to decide whether or not we have a state constitutional convention or not. It's a complex process, but I'll make it very kind of brief. Newsday actually did a very good editorial on it that explained it from top to bottom, if you want to try to look at it to get a real detailed explanation. But what a constitutional convention would be is if the voters vote yes for that, and just so you know, when you go to the polls on Tuesday, your ballot has two sides to it. The front is all the electeds that you would be voting for. The back is all the propositions, and there's 3 propositions on the ballot. So you want to make sure you flip those ballots over. But back to the Constitutional Convention. So on Tuesday, if a Constitutional Convention is voted for, enough people vote for yes, then we would have a Constitutional Convention. And what that would look like would be from every state Senate district that we have, there would be 3 chosen representatives to go to Albany, and basically everything's on the table. All the pension systems that we have, the protections we have for workers, the protections we have for all different segments of our society, everything is open. And whatever that Constitutional Convention, what laws or changes that they come out with, would then go back on the ballot as a referendum for the voters to vote up or down. So that is really a very brief description of a very complex process, but that's it in a nutshell, really.
They could also tell the county how to spend, or the towns how to spend their taxes as well. Within the advocates have the parameters to affect.
It could affect home rule, but not, I don't think you can tell them specifically how to spend money. You can tell them.
They can increase it. They can tell Suffolk County that, we want an increase, or say it statewide. They can affect the amount of taxes that are paid throughout the state.
They could change the sales tax. I don't know that
Right,
it could.
yeah.
That's by the legislature.
Yeah, it would be part of the amendments from the convention. And again, I'm by no means an expert on the Constitutional Convention, but that's the law as I understand it.
But no matter what they change, they still have to come back to the voters, and we have to say yes or no, correct?
Yes, it would come back to a ballot referendum. I'm sorry, what was your follow-up question, sir?
The follow-up question is, what's really the basis for my question was the pensions. We're looking at a fellow who committed a felony by the name of Burke. He's now in jail, a couple of years, and he's getting $145,000 a year pension. That's criminal. In the city of New York, if a city cop commits a felony, he loses his pension. Why isn't the same thing applicable across the board for all state employees? Whether they be elected or otherwise. And now, follow up with that, because I'd like to canvass each and every one of you to see how you feel about that issue.
To hold the mic, I'll start. I agree with you. It is criminal that he's still paid a pension. Unfortunately, that's the law in our state.
So that's what I mean. Will that be part of the Constitution?
It could be part of the Constitutional
No, it's
Convention.
Prop 2. It's Prop 2.
And it is on the ballot this year, but just understand, so there's a ballot referendum, so that's one of the 3 referendums on the back of the ballot, is that if you're convicted of a crime, you would lose your pension.
No matter who you are.
No matter who you are, whether you're elected or you're an employee of a municipality. What it doesn't do is it doesn't go retroactive back after those people that have already been convicted and are already collecting those pensions.
They're already grandfathered in.
They're grandfathered in, so there's no way. So even what we've seen recently with our district attorney, he would not be affected by this law because the crime would have to be committed after the referendum goes into place, so after January 1st of 2018. And I'm a firm believer in that. It's a start. To me, it doesn't get you what you want. It doesn't get me what I want. I don't think any of them should be allowed to collect those pensions, but it's a matter of law, and we can't, in fact, take those
I like
away.
to canvass everybody else.
Sure.
On the issue.
Sure. Again, I'm Joe Tronnell. I'm running for the 10th Legislative District. I'm a firm no against the Constitutional Convention. As a public employee, a school teacher, I just believe there's too much at risk with the public pension systems and the protections we have there, with environmental protections, from the Adirondacks and the Catskills being designated forever wild, to many other environmental protections. Like Legislator Lindsay said, everything is on the table.
How about specifically the pension?
With the pensions, well, with the pensions, again, I believe and I agree with you, sir, that if someone does commit a crime, especially a felony, they should not be receiving a public pension that we as taxpayers fund. I'm firmly in agreement with you there. And one last thing I'd like to add about the Constitutional Convention, this would cost us in upwards of over $100 million as taxpayers in New York State. That's just another reason I'm firm no against the Constitutional Convention. I believe there's many other things that we can put that $100 million to work, and we just need to hold our elected state officials accountable and make sure they do the work that we elected them to do.
I am also a firm no on the CONCON. To me, we're given the opportunity to protect everything that my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and my father has worked so hard on towards their pensions. We need to protect that, and we need to protect that wholeheartedly. Another thing, the numbers that are projected right now for this convention, it is upward of 100 million, more like maybe $165 million to taxpayers. That is ridiculous.
How is that?
Okay, that's the actual course of this of the convention. This is the number. Beyond our control, if we allow this to happen, that is exactly the number that it's going to be spent, upward of $100 million to us, the taxpayer. And to the second part of your question, if you commit a crime, you should get no pension at all, zero.
I agree.
Okay? I mean, it's a privilege. I know you've worked 30, 40 years, but you know what? It's to go gracefully, go play golf, go fishing, not to commit a crime. You understand? And then expect to get paid while you're in prison. So I am totally against that. If you commit a crime, you should not get your pension.
Just to ask Cynthia your question about how the cost of each one of these representatives, so you have 3 representatives for each state senate district, written into the Constitution is that they would be paid the equivalent of a state assembly salary for their participation in the convention. Right now, state assembly salary is $79,000.
800? 79.8. Is it 8 or 5?
They would
As
also,
long as
$795.
as long as it takes to conclude the convention.
and they also get a budget, a spending budget.
I'm against the Constitutional Convention. I think, to a certain extent, we've seen it in our communities, all of the vote no signs and the magnets on the back of the cars. And I think the New York Times released a poll within the last week that says it's overwhelmingly going to be defeated, like 80 to 20%. There are advocates for the Constitutional Convention and reasons why people think you should have it. The public employees unions have completely defeated any concept of the Constitutional Convention. It is going to fail. That is proposition number 1. It is going to be soundly defeated. On proposition number 3, which is the public pensions and the inability of convicted people to collect a public pension, that is proposition number 3 on the ballot, on the back of the ballot. You should vote yes for that if you feel that way.
2.
It's 2.
No, 2 I think is, I believe.
It's 2.
3 is,
3 is the other one.
Wildlife.
Wildlife Reserve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure you read it.
You tell them, Lisa.
Read it well.
Thank you, Jim. So I am against the Constitutional Convention, that's for sure. It's a disgrace to try to pick pockets of pensions of people who have been working to balance the books for government mistakes. So I am a no on the Constitutional Convention. I am a yes on Prop 2. But let me just get back to his question with Burke for a second, because it's bigger than Burke. The Suffolk County Legislature had...
I only use him.
And it's very good. Let me just go to that for a second. The Suffolk County Legislature, which is democratically controlled, with a Democrat county executive, had the chance to demote Burke. There was a bill in, and they tabled that bill. It would have demoted him and lessened his, he still got a pension, but it would have been lessened. This is a man who disgraced his uniform, broke the law, had sex with prostitutes in a police car, was on the front page of Newsday 26 times. He ran a criminal enterprise with Tom Spoda. The Suffolk County Legislature had a chance to have Spoda come in front, and they whiffed on it. Nobody did anything. Nobody protected the people in Suffolk County. The Democrats looked the other way. And now 10 days before the election, they're all calling for his resignation before he resigned the other day. It's disgraceful what's going on in Suffolk County. It's a cesspool. Corruption, pay for play. Who in this room, I don't even know how anybody takes it anymore. As a taxpayer, as someone who's lived in this county my whole life, it disgusts me. Thank you.
I'm certainly opposed to the Constitutional Convention. I know that there are many people who live throughout our community who worked very hard, were honest workers, and now they depend on their pension. And for there to be any sort of a risk of that pension being able to be opened up and taken away from those who worked so hard for it, I'm absolutely opposed to it. Yeah, and the second part of your question, sir, with regards to the, what was the second part of the question? Was the pension. So I think that anybody who commits a crime should certainly have their pension taken away. I don't think that that state legislation goes far enough. I believe the way that I have observed it or read about it is that it currently is written only to affect elected officials and not appointed officials like a police commissioner. So that legislation hardly goes far enough. It only affects elected officials, does not affect appointed officials like Police Commissioner Burke. So that's just something to think about. Thank you very much.
I have a question. Is this on? Yeah. Thanks to all of you guys for coming down tonight to listen to our questions.
Thank you.
My question is going to pay for play. If you guys get elected or re-elected, we're talking about a developer coming in and giving your campaign money, do you feel that you should recuse yourself from the vote, or do you feel that you can be impartial enough to vote after receiving money from developers or anyone?
Great question.
It wasn't mine. I will not. I asked it, but it wasn't my question.
No problem.
I think it's very simple. Just don't vote at all. Don't vote. Recluse. First of all, any developer, again, that's why we have to institute a law that says that there is no developer that has put money into anyone's campaign that should be allowed to do. Yes.
And will you stop? I can't keep moving the camera.
I'm sorry. That's me. I just want to be able to get to everyone, but no. Okay? If you are a donor, if you're a donor to anyone that's on there, that's on the particular board, first of all, the money should not be accepted. There should be a law in place stating that if you are an elected official, do not receive any dime, a penny from any developer whatsoever. That's number one. It's got to be done. Because as long as that we have people in office today that are tempted and sway one way or the other because that developer has put in the money. So, in answer, recluse yourself. If it's something that's already, there's no law, don't vote on it. At all. At all. Period. And if you do, then they should be brought up on charges.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm in agreement with Sammy on this issue that I believe that no developer who will eventually have to do business with either the town or the county or even the state should be able to make campaign donations. You know, that's my top issue while I'm running for Suffolk County Legislature. I talk to so many people and they say, you know what, the biggest problem at every level of government is that elected officials don't listen to the will of the people. And again, you know, we're seeing it on development project after development project, where the people simply get ignored. So what I would ultimately like to see here in Suffolk County is an incentivization program that will make candidates go out and talk to individual voters, find out what matters to them, seek donations from them, instead of going from large developer to large developer, from fundraisers that charge $500 a plate where regular working people like us can't get in and we can't get heard. So that's what I would like to eventually see here in Suffolk County, is a move towards publicly financed elections to get rid of the current pay-for-play environment that we have now.
Amen.
things. First thing, there was a warning issued that beware of people who come to you 5 days before an election and make promises that you can't keep. And the only thing that I promised was to listen to you and to represent you. Other people are promising you things that they can't keep. There's a developer who bought that piece of property. Listen, Legislator Lindsay and I were at a forum with the Oakdale Civics, where we talked about, wouldn't it be great if this could stay a golf course? Wouldn't it?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be great?
Yes.
I don't have $45 million to keep that property a golf course. And I would venture to guess that neither does anybody else in the audience. Somebody bought that piece of property, and they now have what's called property rights. They have rights to that property because they bought it. And that's America. So we have every right to stand up to them and say, we don't accept your current proposal, but I don't have the ability, nor would I make a promise that I can't keep, that's to remain green space forever. Who's going to pay for that? Who wants to pay for that? Do you want to pony up for that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Big sale. Because you would spend the 45 million, if it was zoned AAA to begin with, you overspent. So you
Well,
should buy
there's
the
a long history.
I agree, sir.
A long history.
He knew what he wanted. He knew what he wanted.
Okay, hold on a second. We have to stay civil.
The issue
Let
was,
him answer the question. You
the
can
issue
make
was
your
people
own
make, an accusation was made that people making promises that they can't keep.
No.
And I have, now that was an accusation that was made by one of the speakers. And I'm telling you, I haven't promised you anything other than to listen to you and to, if elected, include you, represent you, advocate for you. I don't own the property. I can't tell you what it's going to look like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, or 20 years from now. I can advocate for you as your representative, but it's not my property. I can't turn it into open space.
But the question was,
So
would
the
you
question
refuse-
is about campaign contributions.
And votes.
Okay, so apparently, I'm going to try and address the elephant in the room if I can. Apparently, I had a fundraiser on September 18th, and on my Facebook page, there was a poster of people who had contributed to my fundraiser, including the developer of the Island Hills property. So I would suggest, there are people in the room who think that they have done a lot of homework on this issue and think that they've spent a lot of time on it, but apparently they did not read the rest of the Facebook page, which had testimonials from people who I have served with in North Hempstead Town Government who said, I have unquestionable integrity and ethics, and Democrats who have said, if they lived in the town of Islip, they would run to vote for me. Democrats, Art Gianelli, Lizanne Gazetta-Altman, people who are elected officials who I served with in Nassau County, who don't question my integrity. If you believe that someone made a campaign contribution to me, and now all of a sudden I have been bought, you really don't know me. I will tell you this.
Will
Sir,
you vote
sir,
on it?
Sir, are you Mr. Reckler?
No.
Sir, are you Mr. Reckler? Because
Are you going to vote on
I'm going to answer the question.
No, answer it yes
I just
or no.
did. I just did answer the
Answer the question.
Okay.
We don't know.
I don't know
Right.
Mr. Reckler. He could be in the room right now, and I wouldn't know him. Someone made a campaign contribution to me, and I accepted it. Doesn't have any influence on me at all. I will represent you all the more zealously.
Give it back.
Sorry?
Will you refuse?
And you know what? I thought about that. I thought about that.
Oh,
And that's like an admission that somehow acceptance of a campaign contribution can influence me, and it can't. It can't.
Answer the question.
I think he answered it. He
No,
just
will
said,
you vote on it?
whether you give him $10,000, 50
Or 10
cents,
cents.
or $1 million,
10
it's
cents.
not going to affect his decision on whatever he's
But that's not the question, though.
That was the
Yes, the
was a
question
question. That
was,
was a
if I give you $1 million to your campaign, and then I put in a zoning change that I want to turn my house into
Do you recuse yourself?
3,000 apartments, Will my contribution affect your decision?
No.
That was not the
Now,
question.
the question is, since you know I gave you that contribution and now my application is in front of you, would you recuse yourself? Do you see that there is a conflict of interest
Correct.
that requires you to recuse yourself? Okay, that's his answer. He doesn't
That's the
believe there's a
question.
conflict of
And just
interest.
so
You
that
can
you
just-
know,
Until they change the
the
law.
question was not directed at any individual person. It was an in general question.
It was to
Just-
everybody. Okay.
Right. I would like to hear from everybody for that.
Great answer. At least you were honest. Thank you for being honest.
Thank you.
No,
Tony,
same
raise your
question,
hand.
same question.
Well, I'm very proud that I haven't accepted any PAC money or any special interest money from anyone while I'm running my race. I'm running a grassroots campaign. I think my bank account has about $250 in it right now, so I don't think I need to recuse myself
to my
for
world.
anything. So that's number one. Number two, the biggest issue, which is a federal issue, but it affects all candidates, is Citizens United, which we have to get rid of because that's all the dark money that comes in and affects our politicians at a much bigger level than what we see here at the local level. But here in Suffolk County, I don't know who knows this, but the biggest special interest of all is the Long Island Law Enforcement Foundation, which owns the Suffolk County Legislature. They have bought and paid for almost every single member of the legislature in the majority. All due respect to my opponent, he is the biggest taker, biggest getter of that money in his name. After this campaign is over, he'll get over $200,000 from the Long Island Law Enforcement Foundation. And they have the box trucks and the mail pieces that come out and slander opponents, and they say they're not, it doesn't have anything to do with his campaign. But Anthony Piccirillo's cuts, what cuts? I've never been an elected official. What am I going to cut? Could cut law enforcement. Fewer cops on the street. I've never been an elected official. How can I make sure there's no cops on the street? Fewer resources for our officers. You know what fewer resources for our officers means? It means the James Burkes of the world won't get big pensions because they voted on the superior officers contract after they get $200,000 in special interest loans. That's what this is about. When you get these in your mailbox, fake news, lies. This is the swamp. This is what they're talking about when they say drain the swamp. So when you get these, throw them in the pail or throw them in your fireplace. Stay warm this winter.
You can't burn them, they make smoke with them.
Get rid of them reasonably recycled. Recycle.
There you go.
Excuse me, I'm just going to take a few more minutes to go over this lovely letter.
I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you because.
I want that.
The other gentleman had enough time.
I
Okay,
know,
we didn't
but I'm
have
gonna give you the time at the end with your closing statement.
Can I, how about one more minute?
What, 30 seconds?
30 seconds, thank
Because
you.
it'll turn into a minute.
Don't let Anthony Piccirillo play politics with our safety. What politics am I playing? When I screened in front of the PBA, I told them that I can't in good conscience vote for a $400 million contract and a 28% cost of living increase. Who in this room got a 28% cost of living increase? Raise your hand.
Never.
Raise your hands, please. Let me see one. Nobody. Why did the Suffolk legislature give away a $400 million contract and a 28% cost of living increase? Look at the campaign filings. Bill Lindsay, $179,000. Sarah Anker, $150,000. Rob Clarko, $90,000. This is what has to stop. This isn't Democrat, Republican. This is a human thing. We have to stop this. It's up to you to go into the voting booth on Tuesday and put an end to this.
So would you recuse yourself if?
Recuse myself. I don't take the money. I don't need to recuse myself.
Good answer.
While I said earlier on in the beginning of the meeting that I have the endorsement of the Suffolk County Police Department, the Nassau County Police Department, and the New York State Troopers, I have received no money from any of those organizations, nor do I vote on any of their contracts. I think that law enforcement supports me because they know that I'm an honest person, and they know that I truly believe and I very much support law enforcement in their day-to-day operations, but I have received no money from them. In the past, and by the way, the Reckler project, I received no money from them. I think it was probably 5 years ago. They wrote me a check for $400, but that was 5 years ago, and not in this election cycle. Regardless of that, it does not sway my decision on that project. I do not support that project. I will not vote yes for that project. Thank you. There have been times in the past where I did receive a check from somebody who was donating to my campaign when I knew that they had a project that was going to be coming before me, and I have sent that check back. I would not receive a check from that person on the heels of an application that was coming before me, and I often have sent checks back. So that's where I stand on that. Thank you.
One follow-up. If, let's say you receive money like for this year, and then 3 years from now, is this on?
It doesn't sound like it, but it is. It is.
3 years goes by, election's over, you win, yay! 3 years go by, the person who donated money to you happens to have an application in front of you. Would you recuse yourself? At that point, if you know, wait a minute, this name sounds familiar, oh yes, they donated to me, would you recuse yourself from deciding on their proposal? If there was a time lag between?
Yeah. I think it's important that if it's in the same election cycle, but like I said, like Reckler donated to me 5 years ago, and I'm still voting no on his project coming up. So I think I kind of answered that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
You're last up on that one question.
What's
Did you
the,
hear
if you could repeat the question?
The question was...
I heard a lot of answers, but I didn't hear the question.
So Tom, I asked the question was, if you receive campaign contributions from a special interest group for anything, and a vote came up regarding that special interest group, would you recuse yourself, or would you be able to vote impartially?
I would be able to vote impartially. How are you? First of all, I apologize for being late. I was at another community meeting, but it's good to see everybody here for this important evening. You know, any one of you in this room could have... I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Tom Silmy. I'm a member of the county legislature representing the 10th Legislative District. I just assume everybody knows me at this point. And I'm like some of the others here, I'm running for re-election this year for my 5th term in office, so I'm serving my 8th year. And as some of you may know, there's 12-year term limits in the county legislature, so if I'm re-elected this year, I'll have another 2 years, and I'll run for re-election again in 2019. I thoroughly love my job, thoroughly love representing this community. I bring sort of a business background to the county legislature, and I'm pretty proud of a very long record of accomplishments, and pretty proud of the fact that I'm a very accessible public official, whether it's in my office or at community meetings or on Facebook or wherever. People know that if they need to reach me for some reason, I am there for you. You pay my salary, make that clear. I know that going into the job every single day. I'm a full-time legislator, more than full-time, and I'm here for you. So to directly answer the question, any number of you in this room could have contributed to my campaign. And if Elisa, if you have $1 million in your pocket, that's...
I would not be standing here.
Right.
Let's
Because you and I are going to have a chat later, if that's the case. We actually have campaign contribution limits in the county legislature. For me, for either an individual or a corporation or a union, it's roughly a $2,500 per cycle direct campaign contribution limit. There have been many people who have made contributions to me over the years. Many corporations who have made contributions to me over the years. It has absolutely no impact on the way I represent those people or the way I vote on issues that might impact those people. I will tell you that a fellow county legislator has a bill in the county legislature that basically said, or it set limits to contributions from anybody, unions or corporations that have business ongoing with the county, and I supported that resolution. That's the best I can answer the question. So, directly speaking, I would not recuse myself from any vote. You elect somebody, I hope, who you believe has integrity, who you can trust, and I do not let campaign contributions cloud my judgment or sway my judgment in any way.
Thank you. Bill Lindsay didn't answer that. Bill Lindsay didn't answer that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't
We went
skip
down
Bill.
the line.
Thank you. Let me just echo some of the comments made by my colleague legislator Silmy. I have campaign contribution limits just like he does. They differ from one district to the others. Mine's 2875. It has something to do with a formula of how many people voted in my district in the last gubernatorial race. But something my opponent brought up, that I took $179,000.
Over 200 now.
Over 200? I took over 200,000. I can tell you right now, I haven't gotten $200,000 from the PBA or the police conference. That's money that's spent that isn't coordinated with me, and I'm assuming he's correct. I have no idea because it's not something that we have any say over how they spend the money. I'm sure, I don't know because I haven't looked it up, but I'm sure they've spent money on legislator Silney's race, as I believe they have endorsed you. No?
They did endorse me, but I don't think.
They've never have in the past?
What's
They have never spent any money on the police conference supporting you?
In the way that you're talking about now, I don't think so, but honestly, I don't know. As you know, we're not supposed to know the answers to that question,
Right.
so.
So all of the money that we receive as campaign contributions, there's full transparency. You can go online right now and look up everybody that's donated $1 to my campaign or to any incumbent's campaign, any candidate's campaign, as long as they're doing their filings correctly. They'll show any contributions they've received in every campaign cycle. In terms of whether I would accuse myself or not, I wouldn't. We have that transparency. It's fully disclosed. I can tell you I'm a person of integrity. I don't do this job because I have to. I do it because I want to. I come out of the private sector. I still own my own business in the private sector. There's no amount of money that you could pay me that's going to buy my vote or my allegiance. I believe I get their support because I support law enforcement. I'm supported by other law enforcement agencies that don't provide any financial contribution towards my campaign. So I've continuously fought for first responders, and advocated for them, and I will continue to do that, and I'll continue to do it for all working people in the town. So, thank you.
Okay, go ahead. You want to yell, or you can come down and use it?
No, I would just like to know where the town stands on expanding the parking meters into Sayville and whatever other towns. Sure.
And Ronkonkoma. Don't be putting any in there.
Okay, so the parking meter program started out as a program that was introduced to all the board members by another board member, not anybody up here. And it was just supposed to be meters on Main Street and Bay Shore because the stores on Main Street and Bay Shore were having a very difficult time parking on Main Street or customers parking on Main Street because in the summertime or 6 months out of the year, people were parking their cars there and walking to the ferry and leaving their cars there for weeks at a time. So the store owners and the rest of the board members, including myself, all thought that that was a good idea. So we voted to fund this program with the support of the Chamber of Commerce, the entire community. Then, and it was a pilot program, it was supposed to be tested out. And then there was a game changer that I was not aware of and the community was not aware of, where they decided to not only meter Main Street, but to also meter the back parking lots in Bay Shore, which I'm not a fan of. My husband works on Main Street in Bay Shore. He can't find a parking spot now. So that was not part of the program. The next step was the supervisor and one of the other board members put together a capital spending plan that called for adding an additional 300. Now we started to realize the program was pretty controversial and I was no longer in favor of it because it was failing miserably. And I said to my fellow board members, listen guys, it's okay to fail on something and it's okay to say, we voted for something, we tried it out, we made a mistake, we're going to rip them out. I said, so let's rip them out. No, they don't want to rip them out. So then they put money in for $300,000 to try to expand the program and to continue it down Main Street and into Sayville. Supervisor Carpenter and Councilman John Cochran.
So two people made these decisions, even though you're on board?
Because the person who spearheaded the program was Councilman John Cochran. So let me finish. So they decided then that they would, Supervisor Carpenter is the chief financial officer of the town, so she gets to put the budget together, we just get to vote on it. So they put $300,000 in to try to expand the program, at which point me and two other board members, Mary Kate Mullen and Steve Flodderin, voted no against it. We're not expanding the program, we won't let any more money be spent on the program, we halted the program, we won't let it expand into Islip. We won't let it expand into Sayville. We won't let it expand any further than it is right now. So we were able to halt the program. There's another capital spending plan coming out again at the next town board meeting where she's going to request that $300,000 again, and it will fail again because myself, Steve Flotterin, and Mary Kate will not vote yes for it, and it needs 3 votes to pass, and right now it only has 2 votes. So it won't be passing, and that is basically the situation with the meters. And now we're trying to argue to pull out the ones that currently exist.
Why did they go right to the meters if the problem was a ferry, people parking for the ferry? Yeah, address that. Why didn't they put 2-hour maximum parking signs up? That way they could be ticketed then, to make money that way. At least, people could come, park, shop, eat for 2 hours and then go.
Because the community met with Councilman Cochran, they came up with this plan to meter Main Street, and everybody was fine with it. Now they're starting to realize that it's a failure. So now myself, Mary Kate, and Steve Flotterin are calling to pull the meters out and will not fund any more growth of that program. All right? So the answer to the question is, I'm opposed to it. I think it was a bad idea. We thought it was going to be something good. It's something bad. I stand before you now and tell you that it was a bad idea. It was a mistake and they need to be ripped out. And that's how I feel about it.
Does that include the meters at the marina?
Yes, that includes the meters at the marina.
And no plans to put them in Ronkonkoma train station, right?
There's not going to be any more money to continue to fund it. So no. I don't, unless Angie can get another vote, which I don't think she's going to be able to do, I don't see the program continuing, and I see it eventually just being ripped out.
And when is that vote coming up?
The vote on the budget is going to come up next week, and I've already spoken to my other council members, and myself and Steve and Mary Kate will be voting no on that to expand the program. Okay? Thanks.
From day one, from the beginning, in speaking with the Bayshore Chamber of Commerce, the people of the community of Bayshore were never in agreement with the meters. Never.
Along Main Street, yes, they were, sir.
Okay,
Never.
okay. Answer the question.
Never.
I'm not gonna get into this.
From day one, they should have never put the meters in Bayshore. Okay? From day one, they should have never put the meters in Bayshore. And now they have them in the back, and all those people that have to pay over $450 or so to get on the Long Island Railroad to go to work now have to pay meters, to put money into the meters. It's another extra added cost. It's another mismanagement of the current town board. It's another cloak and dagger. It's another infighting between Angie Carpenter and Ms. Trish Bergen. Because they can't manage.
Okay, so the answer is you would not vote.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna cut.
Absolutely. Okay, not a problem. But
All
I'm
right,
against
next
it.
question.
I have a question for Mrs. Bergen. When you first started speaking to us, you were talking about this idea of partnering with Suffolk County to possibly make that green space. How long have you been in office?
8 years.
That property's been vacant for 3 years. What's everybody in town hall doing for the past 3 years? Thinking that they were gonna make a bird sanctuary there? All of a sudden, now you have this great idea.
What's
Where
your
were you
question?
3 years ago?
Sorry, sir, what is your question?
How come you just came up with this idea now, a few days before election?
I didn't come up with it just now. You can actually, Bill Lindsay will verify for you that this is a conversation that we started having when the developer put the application in to show us that he wanted 1,371 apartments, which was only just a few weeks ago that he brought that proposal into town hall, and that's when Bill and I started to say, this is not a good
I beg to
idea.
differ with you. I knew from the first week that developer bought that property what his intentions were. Verbally, I was told up there by an employee of the developer. So I'm sure you guys were in tune to this. And it's just disappointing after 3 years that all of a sudden now we come up with a great idea for green space.
Let me, even though it wasn't directed at me, because I was involved, in all fairness, until there's an application, there's nothing to be opposed to. The second part of that is, it's still privately owned property. It would be like me saying, I'm gonna buy your house and turn it into green space without your approval. they would have to agree to sell the property, and the way the law is written in the county, we would only pay the appraised value for what it's currently zoned at. So we will not, the county, if it's even approved, and if they agree to sell it, that we would not pay anything more than what 84 homes on single acre lots would be valued at in Sayville.
Green space at this particular time is pie in the sky. I think we all know that. The thing is
That's not true, sir. We buy open space every year. A quarter cent out of your sales tax goes into an open space fund. It's mandated. It was voted on by the voters to have this fund. Every year, we're buying more and more open space. There's less open space available, but we're continuing to buy open space each year.
Do you know, does anyone know how much Reckler paid for that property?
40 million.
Was it?
I thought we heard 45.
No, I think they said it's worth 45 million if you do one house, 1 acre lots.
It
Private
was originally
homes.
appraised for 35 and then reappraised for, I think, 18. The whole scheme for Reckler to buy the property was a land grab from the beginning. And it was all a matter of Reckler buying the debt from the banks before the banks foreclosed on the property, which anybody can do, and they did. So the number is somewhat unclear. I've heard between 35 and 40 million.
That they paid for the property.
That's what they paid,
So.
which wouldn't be crazy when you think about the acreage times roughly $220,000 per acre. Wouldn't be crazy to think about that kind of a number. So that's the number that I've heard. But it is very complex and intricate as to how they came into the property through all of the different reincarnations of the golf course property and all of the different ownership interests in the golf course property, including the debt holders, the banks.
So, sir, when I say that we would like to ask the county if they would use that 0.25% tax that goes into the land preservation, it would have to be a request, and then if the county said yes, then the town would also have to contribute money, so we would have to try to find ways that the town could come up with that money, because the town doesn't have a 0.25%. And then when we went and put all that money together, if the county said yes, if the town said yes, then we would have to go ask the developer, can we buy your property? Will you accept this money and take it? And the developer still could say no to us. But when somebody says to me, would you like to see it as open space? I'll look for any way to try to keep it open space. It doesn't necessarily mean the developer's going to agree to that.
I'm just disappointed in the lack of vision, because this didn't just come up this month or last month.
No, but it did just come out. The application just came in about 4 to 6 weeks ago, or 8 weeks ago,
Well, I'm
into
talking
our
about
office.
vision for the whole township. I think maybe you guys should open up the blinds or something in town hall and look and see at these open spaces and what's the potential problems that we have. This didn't just develop a month ago. You can't-
And
you
then we
can't
would have to
surprise
get the
me with that.
developer to agree to sell it to us.
If you say no on the zoning, they have no choice.
Exactly.
That's the whole thing.
Well, no, they have a choice. They have a choice. They can still build private homes.
We have no problem with that.
Okay, I'm just clarifying, I don't want anyone to say.
Okay, go ahead, what's your question?
Yeah, we're talking about visions. I'm going to ask all of you, we've lost a lot of manufacturing, we've lost a lot of jobs, and we're losing a lot of our young people. What is your vision for the town of Islip and for Suffolk County as to how we're going to preserve the jobs, the people here? I know we have this big plan about the Stony Brook and the lab out, the Brookhaven lab, but where are we creating, how are we going to create jobs, number one, to keep our children here, our grandchildren, and with all this happy nonsense about building apartments and building houses, how are we going to keep these people employed here? Can any of you, what is your vision? And this goes to all of you. What is your vision for this?
That's a great question, and I'll since I have the mic right here, I'll start. So I actually have a meeting tomorrow with Connecticut High School with the superintendent and the principal to create a public-private partnership with local manufacturer right on Vets Highway, which is located, right by the airport. We actually have a very robust manufacturing sector within our county. We have over 5,000 manufacturing companies, over 2,900 manufacturing companies, over 50,000 people employed in these manufacturing companies, average salary of $85,000 a year. Last year they had 5,700 job postings, and a lot of those postings they couldn't fill. And the number one issue that each one of these companies has, and I can tell you because I've met with their groups and a lot of the executives from these companies, is they can't find the qualified individuals to hire in order to work in this. Manufacturing isn't what it used to be. It's not sitting on an assembly line putting little components together. It's high tech, it's coding, it's programming, it's robotics. These are skills that we need our kids to be taught from the high school level all the way up through college. And I've had the same meeting in Bayport. I'm doing the same meeting at Bayport Blue Point High School. I'm doing the same meeting at Connecticut High School. We need to create these partnerships where our schools do a great job at educating our kids, but they have to find out what is the private sector demanding that these kids learn in order for them to be employable upon graduation. It's great that we teach them, but we need to teach them the things that are going to help them get jobs. I've also worked within our community college. We have a workforce development department where I've helped companies that are facing similar type issues partner with our community college, develop 2-year degree programs where kids can come out and they're almost guaranteed employment in varying different sectors. These are the type of barriers that have been in place for years because you have all of these different institutions, whether it's the public schools or the colleges, and then you have the private sector, and they're not interacting, and the barriers are in place. I'm trying to break down those barriers, trying to create those economic opportunities for our young professionals so that they can stay. I have a daughter in high school. I want her to be able to find a job and live here. I have a son in grammar school. I want him to be able to find a job and live here. But part of that also needs to, a critical component to that is the housing component. Now, that doesn't mean we put apartments everywhere. We should be focusing our attention on transit-oriented development. Developing places where people want to live, our young kids, they don't want a house with picket fence and a big backyard. They want to live in walkable downtowns, and that's where we should be focusing our redevelopment issues, redevelopment efforts, to give them the place to live that they want to at an affordable price. And how do you do that? It's basic economics 101. It's supply and demand. How do you get rents down? You have more supply in the market. Why are rents so high? Because there's not a lot of supply and there's a high demand. You reverse that trend and rents will come down naturally.
So would that be, so with these 1,300 apartments that are supposedly going in, would that kind of?
No, because that's not transit-oriented development. Transit would be around the train station.
So like
On Ronkonkoma Hub, correct.
Okay,
No, there's going to be office space and retail space located at those centers.
So what are the statistics on the wine bench?
We're still in the middle of a question. Go ahead, ask a question.
thank you. So, I'd like to echo a lot of what Legislator Lindsay said. I look forward to working with Suffolk Community College to increase training in the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and math. As a high school math teacher, I know the importance of it, and as a former having a former business and finance background, working with businesses in Suffolk County, I know that the demand is there for these jobs, but the skill sets are not there for our people. So we really need to invest in Suffolk Community College. We need to partner with our state schools again to get more funding there as well. We also need to make Suffolk County have a friendly business environment towards these potential businesses and attract businesses without giving away the farm and tax incentives. And we do need to make sure if we do give incentives to attract businesses here that we do hold them accountable to provide the jobs and the revenues that they say they're going to bring if we give them these incentives. I'm 32 years old. I've lived here my whole life. I have numerous people that I went to school with, high school and college, that just gave up and left because it's so expensive to live here. You know, people my parents' age, you know, in their mid to late 60s and 70s, they have to leave Long Island because it's so expensive to work here. That's killing our tax base. We're burning the candle at both ends. If this population decline trend keeps happening, again, we're going to be in even worse shape than we are now. So we really need to work and make it more affordable to live here, to have a small business here, which is the lifeblood of our communities. And again, we need to really make sure our young people have the training necessary to work in the jobs that the 21st century demands.
Thank you. The reason why nobody's staying here is because this economy is in the most deplorable state that it's ever been in the history of Suffolk County. 10 years ago, we had a $165 million budget surplus. Fast forward to today, the Suffolk County Democrats have put us in a $150 million structural deficit with $2.2 billion in bonded debt. And this is after they've created $92 million in backdoor taxes, the red light camera, alarm fee, mortgage fee, car registration fee, tax map verification ID, and it goes on and on and on and on. Then they took out $171 million from the Sewer Stabilization and Clean Water Fund, and they can't do that anymore because they got sued, so now they have to start paying it back. Then they took $385 million from the pension fund, and there's still a $150 million structural deficit. This is total mismanagement from Steve Ballone to the majority in the Suffolk County Legislature. We've been hearing about affordable housing in Suffolk County for 40 years. There's no such thing as affordable housing. None, zero.
A month for rent.
And why? Because taxes are too high. Because we pay too much for our services. I love the cops. It's not about what cops make. It's about what the taxpayers can afford to pay them. We can't pay $150,000 pensions. We can't pay them to bank their sick and use vacation time so that when they retire, they get $400,000 checks. That's what Burke got. He's going to come out of jail. He's going to have his $150,000 pension, and Suffolk County taxpayers are going to hand him a $400,000 check from his unused sick days because of a contract signed by the Suffolk County Legislature. In the midst of the Great Recession, the worst financial collapse since the Great Depression, and we're talking about affordable housing, and this all goes back to campaign finance reform. Legislator Trotter has a bill in, it needs to be passed. You want affordable housing, we have to get our taxes down first. And it's never going to happen with the leadership that we have right now in the Suffolk County Legislature. Vote Row B, November 7th.
So the question is, what's the vision? How do we improve Suffolk County, basically? And I think the answer is multifaceted. Bill touched on a number of things. Joe touched on some things. Anthony touched on some things. And the fact of the matter is, all of it together is important. For me, quality of life is paramount. If folks don't have a quality of life here, they're not going to stay here. What goes into quality of life? Cost of living goes into quality of life. All of the fees that Anthony listed so well, I think are incredibly abusive to our taxpayers. You all pay quite dearly in your property taxes, particularly in your police district property taxes. To levy an alarm management fee or an alarm management program to charge you $50 to register your burglar alarm with Suffolk County and then be so brazen to say, okay, we're going to give you 2 free false alarms for that $50 registration. I mean, it's just absurd. We've doubled your vehicle registration fees, the red light camera fees. I mean, it goes on and on and on. That's part of it. But it's not the entire picture. We have worked, the county legislature has worked on a bipartisan level to support Suffolk County Community College. They're doing great things at the community college. We just cut the ribbon on a brand new learning center at the Brentwood campus. Beautiful facility. They're doing great work in the area of STEM. They're doing great work in the area of alternative energy. The nursing program is wonderful. It goes on and on and on and on, the great work so quality, affordable education is really, really important. And by the way, quality public schools are really important. And we are blessed to have some great public schools here in Suffolk County. Bill mentioned getting together with the superintendent to talk about partnerships between business and the school district. That's important. The schools already have those relationships. I've been fortunate to be a member of the Connect-Quat Schools School-to-Business Partnership for some time now. So there's connection between the business community and the school in that respect. We do the same thing in Hauppauge, we do the same thing in Islip, we do the same thing in East Islip. Those are the districts that basically I have some representation of, Central Islip School District, and I would imagine we do that in other places in the county as well. There does need to be that connection. And so students in schools today are learning things that they never learned when most of us, a couple of us maybe, went to schools. You have accounting courses, you have fashion merchandising courses, you have all kinds of different things that go on in public schools that we didn't have. So that's good. Our environment is critically important to sustaining life here in Suffolk County in particular, on Long Island in general. And so we've invested a lot of money in our environment. We've worked with not-for-profit groups to do good work with our ecology. I'm fortunate to have been endorsed by the New York League of Conservation Voters for my environmental record. We support, as Trish said, lots of open space in the county. We've spent a lot of money on open space. Sewers. We are about to spend in excess of, Bill, what's the number, $100 million plus on a new outfall pipe for the Southwest Sewer District, which has been in need of repair for some time.
Is that the one going into the hub, Tom?
The hub is going to connect the Southwest Sewer District, yes.
This sends it out to sea.
But it sends out, the outfall pipe is what brings it from the plant to the ocean. And we're in the process of looking for state and federal funds to expand sewers in some of our, especially some of our South Shore communities where failing septic system cesspools are impacting our water quality. And we also touched on housing. Housing is important. There are a variety of ways that we can improve housing. The housing developments that are being built these days are not affordable housing.
Nope.
They're not affordable housing. There is a market for walkable communities, for apartments. Young people these days, some of them want to live in those types of communities. But there'll be, let me just finish my thought because I will forget it. But in 10 years ago, kids didn't want to live in these communities. They wanted to live in houses. What happens in 10 years when all of a sudden, demand changes? What do we do with all these apartments? From my point of view, I think we're building far too many of them very quickly, and we need to just slow the heck down. And I said to Newsday the other day when they asked me about this issue, and they're totally supportive of all these different housing developments. I said to Newsday, look, unless we start working with communities in developing these properties, unless we start listening to folks about what their concerns are, whether it's too much height, too much density, whatever the case may be, they're all going to blow up and they're never going to happen. We have to work, as government leaders, we have to work with all of you to ensure that what is being built fits within the character of a community. And we can do that. There's nothing that says that we can't do that. We don't have to, one size doesn't have to fit all. We don't have to forsake the needs of a community for the needs of some folks who want to live in apartments. We can actually accomplish both if we work together. And I think that's what we should do. And I think all of that together, and probably a number of other things that I didn't mention, go into what the vision should be here in Suffolk County. I'm not hopeless about it. I think there is some hope. I'm always optimistic as an American, but it's going to take us to roll up our sleeves and make some really difficult decisions.
Did you want the rest of us to answer that, too?
I kind of assumed it was just the county legislature.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. All right, hold on one second.
With all the money you've just talked about spending, how do you plan on even cutting a tax?
Oh, we're gonna-
There's no cuts anywhere. I didn't hear one cut. Everything was, we're gonna spend it, do this, we're spending that. That money has to come from somewhere, and it's us. And you came to my house, and I made fun of you. You walked up, and I said, "Don't tell me about cutting taxes. I don't want to hear it."
Right.
Because no one's done it since I lived here
Right.
for 35 years.
Right.
No one's cut a tax. It's always gone up.
Mm-hmm.
What's the plan?
Well, you and I think, we talked about some of the proposals that I've made to reduce spending and to reduce borrowing in Suffolk County. Unfortunately, those proposals haven't gotten very far. I'm fortunate to have a number of different accomplishments in the legislature despite being in the minority, but some of the fiscal measures that I've proposed have not gotten passed. So, for example, cutting 10% across the board off of our capital program, our capital budget. What does that mean? We have, hundreds of programs in our capital budget each year. All of that we have to borrow money to pay for. I said, let's not cut any one project. They're all important in their own right. At least most of them are. There are some that I would get rid of completely. Spending $4 million on a study to see whether or not you can have bus rapid transit on Nichols Road is one that I would get rid of completely. Jumpstart Suffolk County is another one that I would get rid of, millions of dollars I would get rid of completely. But nevertheless, take a little bit out of each project. Now this is our budget. So if you own a car dealership, and I know this is maybe oversimplifying things, but if you own a car dealership and I go into your dealership and I say I have $100,000 to spend on a car, you'll sell me a $100,000 car. But if I tell you I have $90,000 to spend, you'll sell me a $90,000, or somehow you'll make that car work that I want for 10% less. That's what we should be doing in Suffolk County. We should be sharpening the pencils, cutting those types of expenses. Borrowing is incredibly important because what happens is you have to pay that back. And that drastically impacts our ability to provide services today. When we're paying back $300+ million of pension debt, when we're paying back $2.2 billion of other borrowing to the tune of operating costs, debt service in excess of $100 million a year, that impacts our ability to provide services to you. I've proposed looking for ways to reduce the cost of public assistance. One of the biggest departments from an expenditure point of view in Suffolk County is our Department of Social Services. We spend well over $600 million a year providing public assistance. Personally speaking, I think we can find 5% in that department, $30 million of savings. I think we can find 5% in our police department and other public safety services. Save another 50, 60, 70, whatever it is, $70 million all total.
Will them savings reflect back on us?
No.
Well, look, we can all be cynical and say it doesn't reflect back on us, but the bottom line is that it does reflect back on you because our tax levy is reflective of what the budget is. So when we save the money, our tax levy necessarily has to reflect that savings. Will the county find other ways to spend that money? Perhaps, but it's your responsibility as taxpayers to look at your representatives and say, all right, are you as my county legislator doing the right things in terms of trying to fight against unnecessary spending? And there are things that we have to invest in. Our community college is one of them. And there are things that we need to sharpen our pencils on. Building $1 million beach huts, for example, is something that we shouldn't be entertaining at a time when we have a $150 million deficit. Spending a couple of $100,000 on a rock out in Rocky Point is not something we should be doing when you have a deficit in excess of $150 million. So we have to stop doing those things. And by the way, one more quick thing. We have to stop making stupid decisions. The county, the administration in Suffolk County recently breached a contract, purposefully breached a contract, which is going to cost taxpayers $15 million. $15 million. Yes. What in the world is that? Purposefully breached the contract. We're just not going to put the solar carports up at the Ronkonkoma train station. Even though we have a contract with you, EDF Solar, to do it, we're just not going to do it. So sue us.
Why?
And they did.
What was the basis for?
Mark Lesko, who was the town supervisor of the town of Brookhaven at the time, sent the letter to Steve Ballone, who, this was not Steve Ballone's, the solar carports were not Steve Ballone's project, it was Steve Levy's project. But nevertheless, Steve Ballone inherited the contract that was duly signed. And Steve Ballone basically said, okay. We made a sort of a half-hearted effort to change the location to Suffolk County Community College. The community college said, no, they look like a hassle, we don't want them here. And then we put our heads in the sand and didn't do anything else.
Are you saving any money by breaching the contract?
No, we lost money. EDF Solar was scheduled to pay us $9 million over a 20-year period to lease these parking lots, 7 different parking lots in the county. They said that 30% of the energy generated from the carports was supposed to come from the Ronkonkoma train station installation. So they're paying us, but they're not paying us for the Ronkonkoma train station. Obviously, we don't have no carports there. But rather than go to EDF Solar and say, look, we're a little scared of what's going to happen at the Ronkonkoma train station, so, give us some time, we'll work it out. Or, you know what, you already bought the carports, the solar panels, fine, we'll buy them from you, or...
And why don't they want them?
Well, now it's already in lawsuits, so now it's too late.
What's that?
I don't understand why you don't want the solar panels.
I do want the solar, I didn't want the solar panels. I was the one vote that voted against the whole program to begin with. But they didn't want to put the solar carports at the Ronkonkoma train station because they said they thought it might interfere with the development of the Ronkonkoma Hub project. Meanwhile, I have some sources that have told me that nobody from the Ronkonkoma Hub project ever asked to not put the solar carports there. So the long and the short of this whole story is that EDF Solar took Suffolk County to court. We lost a judgment of $10.8 million. We appealed. We lost the appeal. We sent our insurance company a bill for $7 million. We paid them $3 million. The insurance company said, basically, you're crazy, we don't cover breach of contract. And now we're suing the insurance company.
So we're paying legal.
So when you add the cost of the judgment, this is laughable. Except that it's costing us $15 million.
It would be right.
When you add the cost of the judgment, the legal fees, the interest that's accumulated because we were supposed to have paid it already, and the loss of revenue associated with the not paying us in the lease payments for the Ronkonkoma train station installation, that adds up to about $15 million. Sir, we could do a lot with $15 million. We could provide drug and alcohol counseling, we could fix a lot of roads, we could lower some taxes.
It's been about 15 minutes.
I'm sorry.
There about 15
Take me
minutes.
off the stage.
I know you can keep going, but we gotta give some other people a chance. Yeah.
That's fine. Anyway, that's the answer to your question. Stop making stupid decisions.
I think the question was, what are you going to do to lower the taxes? It's all well
What's
and
the
good
vision?
to get everybody trained, to get a job. How are you going to lower taxes?
I have one more question, Elise.
Wait, does anyone else want to answer that? How are you going to lower taxes?
I won't answer any other questions, I promise.
I think I answered it already.
Yeah, it was just for the legislature.
You want to move on to something else?
Yeah. So, I want to talk about transparency, and mostly this is for the town of Islip. Now for the legislation, the legislators, because I already know where to find everything, Tom has posted all those links on there. But for the town of Islip, when I go and I look, when I go to my Board of Ed, I can go onto my Board of Ed, I can find the agenda, the minutes, a video. When I go onto the town of Islip site, I have to FOIL minutes. There's no minutes anywhere. There's an agenda. An agenda says this, you know, it's just a list. I want to know what you said at the meetings. When people at work, 2 o'clock meetings, they can't make them, they want to see the minutes. Why are they FOILable? How are you, if you're not an incumbent, how are you going to plan to make those more transparent to us as a community so we can see what you're doing when we can't be at those meetings? As you notice, I videotape every meeting all the time. I want to know where those videos are. How come I can't see them? You guys have them. I see you videotaping at the meetings. Only Cablevision can get those. I have FiOS. I want to be able to see what you're doing at these meetings. How can I see them?
Okay, so that was one of the issues that for the organizational meeting on usually January 2nd, we vote on a calendar of meetings, and myself and Mary Kate Mullen, one of the other board members, had made a request that we have half of the town board meetings at nighttime and half in the daytime. And we usually have 2 meetings a month, so one in the daytime and then maybe 2 weeks later the next one at night and then the next one of the day. And Mary Kate and I were shot down. The answer was no, and the other 3 voted for only daytime meetings, and so Mary Kate and I lost out on trying to have more nighttime meetings because this type of a communication is so important for everybody to get their point across. We're not always all going to agree on every single thing, but it's important that we have this dialogue with each other. So that is one of the answers to your question. Having spent, before I got into government, I had mentioned earlier on the night that I was a news reporter for 20 years. And it used to drive me crazy when I would go to a municipality trying to get answers for the community on something that was questionable. And I would be stopped at the door. You can't put in a Freedom of Information request. You can put it in, you got to wait 22 days. So all of that transparency is so very important for everybody to have faith in our government system. The Office of Public Information is a department in the town of Islip that I have absolutely no authority over. I have to FOIL things out of that office. They say, oh, here goes the councilwoman, put in another FOIL request for Freedom of Information in the very building that I work in. Supervisor Carpenter is in charge of the Office of Information, Public Information. And sometimes I feel that I'm not getting enough information out of there. So you can go on our website. There are the meeting dates. Like I said, I fought for nighttime meetings. There are also posts of the meetings and what's going to be discussed. The meetings do broadcast on Cablevision, but you're right, they're not broadcast on FiOS. I will continue to strive to continue to try to get more information out to the public.
I think since the meetings are taped, that they should be made available to the public, and in fact, they should be available at the public library. Shouldn't have to FOIL it. Should be something that you should go to the public library and see. They're taped. There's no reason why they shouldn't be available.
Well, there's new laws also that, and they're violating the open meetings law too with some of the things they do there too, but that's a whole nother question.
You know, unfortunately, this is something that's been happening for years and years and years, and nothing changes. They keep saying, oh yeah, I was shut down, or Angie Carpenter, or this one or that one. Honestly, it's only one night meeting that's going to be done in 2018. But this is every single year since they've been in office. So they must be shot down every single year. Transparency, honesty. It's got to be done straight. We must have new blood in the town of Islip. Get rid of everyone who is untrustworthy at the location, at the town board, and bring in new people so they can actually do what's needed for the people of Islip. When they talk about honesty, it just annoys the hell out of me, excuse my French. When our town board, we have members that are actually selling away town properties so that then to their friends or spouses or whatever, and all of a sudden then they go and they change the zoning so that that person can get a restaurant done in the property that they've already sold to them. Patronage.
I hate to do this, but I'm going to cut you off.
But I'm speaking the truth, though.
I understand, but
That's
it
the
has to be-
problem. When you're trying to speak the truth, I get shut down.
I honestly agree with you, but you have to answer the question, and then we'll
Okay?
move on to the
So
next.
what I'm trying to say is they gotta go. They have to go, and you have to put new laws in place there so that you have the meetings, at least 6 meetings at 6 p.m. a year for the people of Iceland. That's the bottom line.
And would you agree to make them public, the video?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Next question. I'm getting ornery. Let's go. Let's get
I
late.
have a question about the airport and what the plans might be for the airport in conjunction with the Ronkonkoma hub. I just feel like the airport is a lost opportunity, and unless you go to Florida, you really can't even get Iceland Airport really. It doesn't really serve the community. It's useless, yeah.
I agree. Okay, that airport is bleeding. Okay, it's bleeding. No Band-Aid big enough in the world is going to stop the bleeding of money that's going out at that airport. And only because they want to save their patronage jobs there. That's the bottom line. Okay, that airport is full of patronage jobs. Okay, they had a young lady there by Teresa Rizzuto who was doing a great job at the particular time. They got rid of her. That airport there, if you bring in a private management company, can make money. They did it at the Westchester County Airport. And it's making money. I know, I have an office right by there. And I work with the management of the Westchester County Airport. But as long as you have that airport and its patronage jobs, they're not going to make any. They're not going to give that up. That's just the bottom line there. It's sick. It's sick. We need a management company to come in there, okay? And that's all they do, is manage the airports. Bring in the JetBlues, bring in the Deltas, bring in the airlines that need to be brought in so that you can have international. We don't have to be driving all the way to Kennedy Airport or LaGuardia. Why, ma'am? But the only way in order to survive that airport and stop the bleeding is to start bringing international flights there. You have to.
Delta doesn't want to come out here. Southwest was their flight to LaGuardia when they merged with Air Tran.
Okay, I'm gonna stop. Hello. Okay, listen, this is a sore subject, by the way.
Did you notice?
You think? Nobody wants more flights in the airport because we live here and having to go. Anyway, we're gonna move on.
They built a golf course there.
That's a good idea.
All right, we're going to, they're going to make closing statements because it's getting really late and we want to go sit.
Yeah, Starbucks is gonna close
So-
So,
All right, so,
I have a 14-year-old that I gotta get home. She's gotta be up at 5:30 in the morning, and I wanted her to be here to be part of this process. Maybe, Mylan, we could talk about the school board, why high school is so early.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Bill.
Anyway, in all seriousness, as I said at the start, my name is Bill Lindsay. I'm the current legislator in the 8th Legislative District. I've lived in the community now for 19 years. Grew up in Holbrook for most of my life. I work very hard on economic development issues, trying to maintain our young professionals. I have 2 future young professionals in my own home that I want to have live here and have an opportunity to be here. I was actually one of the original members of this association when we were fighting the Triangle Inn from becoming a welfare hotel way back when. I wasn't elected back then. I was just a homeowner who was very concerned about my own community. So I applaud you all for being a part of this association. This room should be filled right now, quite frankly. There's a lot of people that complain for valid reasons, but you don't see a lot of people get out and participate. And this is all part of our political structure system that we have. And I welcome input. I've had my office open for anybody and anyone in the community. I return every phone call myself. I return every email myself. I'm very open and accessible. I come from the private sector. I'm a firm believer in smaller government. So back to your question about cutting costs. I put through legislation this year to actually shrink the size of the legislature, get rid of 5 legislators, go from 18 down to 13. There's no reason why we should have 18 legislators. It's over governance. I can tell you I created bipartisan opposition to that. I was the only person in favor of it. The rest of the legislature was against it, regardless of party. So I do believe that using private sector experience that I've had, we should learn how to do things less expensively, and we should learn how to do things more efficiently. I hope to get your vote next Tuesday, and I thank you all for being here tonight.
Can I just answer Bill's question because you had mentioned, part of the reason it's transportation because we work on 3 cycles. We work at the high school, we work middle school, and then we work the elementaries. And we have 11 schools in our district. The other piece of it too is to fit more, especially daylight time, in for the sports programs. So if you have the buses on the high school later schedule, you're
Section
leaving
11
less
is who
time
we
for
need to
the-
yell at.
the sports.
I was really kind of a joke.
Don't get me started on that.
Again, being an educator, the science and studies have shown that technically the elementary school children should go to school first, and then the high school children should go to school latest. But again, sports. I'm a former student athlete, and I know that unfortunately takes precedence. But again, I'm Joe Tronelon. I'm running for Suffolk County Legislator in the 10th District. I'm a firm believer in public service. That's why I'm running. I'm a volunteer fireman in Islip where I live for 11 years. So 24 hours a day, whenever I'm around, if my pager goes off, I have to drop what I'm doing and rush out the door to help my community. I plan on doing the same thing when elected to the Suffolk County Legislature. I have 9 years experience in banking and finance. I worked with working families and small business owners here in Suffolk. I've seen the financial challenges they face, and I look to bring those learned experiences to the legislature to help the county run more efficiently, to cut out wasteful spending, and eventually have some of those savings come back to you as taxpayers. Okay? My 3 top issues: campaign finance reform. Again, I'd like to move towards a system of publicly financed elections eventually. That's going to incentivize elected officials to go out and meet with small individual donors, find out the issues that are important to them, instead of going to large special interest donors. I want to combat the opioid epidemic. I believe that's something we're all in agreement here. Some of us just have different ideas on how to go about it. And finally, I want to protect our water quality, whether it's drinking water that comes from the ground below us, or it's the Great South Bay, or it's Lake Ronkonkoma, or it's a stream that runs through your backyard. Thank you.
Hi, once again, Sam Gonzalez, running for the Islip Town Council seat. I just want to bring back honesty back into the Islip Town Council seat. Real management, transparency, and trust. Everyone in Islip that I have encountered feels like they have lost the confidence in the Islip Town Councils. They've lost that, and it's so difficult now to try to get everyone to come back and get that trust back. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring in that transparency back to the town of Islip. The confidence that we need in the town of Islip. And above all, to listen, to really, really listen what the community really wants in whatever town that we live in the town of Islip. And that's what I want to bring back. Okay, bring back that confidence that we've lost. Less and less people are coming out to vote because they've lost that confidence. And we need to turn that around. We need to turn that around and gain that back. I've been working all my life, my adult life. I've been a union president and a union brother and sister for over 35 years. Over 35 years, and what this town has failed is, yes, we have a great educational process, but we need that apprenticeship language in the town of Islip, because there are others that are not college bound. They're not. But they want to be electricians. They want to be plumbers. They want to be mechanics. And it's imperative that we use and put that language in the town of Islip, which they have refused to put in time and time and time again. We were out there fighting for that language to show that we need this. I just want to say that I promise that I will do everything in my power to work for the community. You, the people, the guy that goes to work every single day, 12, 13, 14 hours a day. That's who I represent, and that's who I will represent if you elect me as the councilman for the Islip town. Thank you.
So my name is Jim O'Connor again. I am also running for Islip Town Board. I moved my family here to the town of Islip in 2004. My wife's work is in West Islip, so we moved to a marital compromise. We moved closer to her work and further from mine. So we love it here in the town of Islip. We wouldn't live anyplace else if we could. I'm going to fight like hell, if elected as your councilman, to preserve our quality of life here in the town of Islip, where we have a AAA bond rating, and where, while things aren't perfect, they're pretty damn good, and I love living here, and I know most of the people who I talk to love living here, and I'm going to fight like hell to preserve that. I am new, okay? So you may have heard about councilman this and councilman that. I have not been serving on the board. I am running for my first time in Islip, so I have not previously served. But I do have previous service, and I would ask you, I would encourage you, to take a look at what the people have said about me, who I worked with 20 years ago when I was an elected councilman. Take a look at what people said to me from both sides of the aisle. Take a look at the fact that while I am a Republican, I served on a board with 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and when elections are over, we work for the good of the people, and we get the people's business done. And that the town supervisor at the time could rely more on me as a reasoned voice on the town board than some of her colleagues in her own party. Take a look at the fact that in the community where I grew up, North Hempstead, when they had a scandal in their building department, the democratically elected from the Democratic Party brought me back to serve as the building commissioner to clean up a mess that they had in their building department. It speaks to my integrity, it speaks to my character, and it speaks to my ethics. You don't know me. You don't know me, you don't trust me. I am just a stranger to you, but listen to the people who do know me. Listen to the people who vouch for me. Take a look at the Facebook page, not just at what you're looking for, look at the entire Facebook page, and you will see about the person who I am and why I stand before you asking for your vote next Tuesday. Thank you.
My name is Trish Bergen, White-Brote, and as I said, I'm running for town board. This will be my final term. I'm running on the Republican, Conservative, Independent, and Women's Equality. This is my only job, and I think that's very important for a council person. Some of the other folks, my opponents, will have other full-time jobs and then do this in addition. I'm at my office. I treat it like a full-time job. I'm there all day from 9 to 4 in the morning, 9 to 4 in the afternoon, and then I'm at community meetings in the evening times. So I'm always available for you. I'm somebody who grew up here, so I understand your concerns. My opponent who left lives in Central Islip, so he doesn't understand that you worry about the airport being privatized because you don't want it to turn into a LaGuardia in your backyard. He doesn't understand that. He lives in Central Islip. He's not from here. He doesn't understand what our concerns are in this part of the town. So I'm here for you. I hope that you believe in me. I hope that you believe that everything that I've done in my time as a councilwoman has been honest work. We had a hiring scandal in the Public Safety Division. I asked that the problem be remedied. It wouldn't be remedied, so I brought the file to the District Attorney's Office, and charges were levied against some of my own employees who were people who I thought were honest people. When honest people make bad decisions and make wrong decisions and break the law, I am the first person to arrive to the prosecutor's office to explain to him that a wrong needs to be righted. And I will continue to do that for you. I will continue to work hard for you. There was a vote to give town board members voted on their own pay raise. It was minimal, it was about 2%. I voted no against my own pay raise. I'm here to work for you, and I will continue to do that. Thank you very much, and thank you for staying so late. We very much appreciate that.
Thank you. My name is Anthony Piccirillo, and I'm running for Suffolk County Legislator in the 8th Legislative District. My close is going to be a little different than everybody else's. We didn't even I know there's a lot of upset people about the Allen Hills Golf Course, and well-deserved. We're all against that. But we have a serious drug epidemic in our community. And I know Mr. Tronalone touched on it, but I'm going to extrapolate. We've lost, year to date, we lead New York State, Suffolk County in heroin and opioid overdoses. Approximately 400 men, women, and children are dead. And you would think that anyone in the majority in the Suffolk County Legislature would sponsor or co-sponsor one piece of legislation to address this epidemic. They stood idly by while James Burke was pulling members of the DEA and the FBI Drug and Gang Task Force out of Suffolk County when we have a drug and a gang problem. Why? Because of campaign finance reform. Because when you get large sums of money from big special interest groups, at the end of the day, you can't do what needs to be done for middle class and working families in Suffolk County. Period. End of story. We need a serious change in Suffolk County. We are in a massive amount of debt. We're running a $150 million structural deficit. It can't continue. The middle class is being wiped out. On November 7th, the choice is clear. We need a new direction in Suffolk County. We need a Republican majority. We need to right our financial ship. We need to actually sponsor legislation to deal with the heroin epidemic and the gang problem. And we need serious campaign finance reform. And that's my promise to you as your next Suffolk County legislator. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you.
It's late. I've spoken a lot tonight already. My name is Tom Silmy. I'm very privileged and proud to represent the 10th Legislative District here. Again, this is my 8th year in office. I'm running for my 5th term in office. I'm not going to talk a lot about what I've done over the last 8 years, whether it's been passing legislation that fast-tracks veterans' applications in our Medicaid department, whether it's been passing legislation that creates oversight of our drinking water, passing legislation that creates oversight over our 911 call center so that people don't get put on hold, passing legislation that makes our social host law tougher so that we don't have these binge drinking parties with our kids, passing legislation that makes the drug house laws tougher in Suffolk County. The list goes on and on and on of things that I've done over the last 8 years legislatively. When we talk about the budget, you will continue to have somebody who will fight relentlessly for honesty and transparency in our budget process here in Suffolk County and for fiscal responsibility in Suffolk County if you re-elect me as your county legislator. And when it comes to being available, when it comes to being a representative for a community, I dare to say, while I have some good competition, there is nobody who will be as connected or nobody who will be more connected, let me not disparage any of my colleagues, nobody who will be more connected to the community than I have been and that I will continue to be. If you all have any questions of me, whether we discuss something tonight or not, you call me in my office, you send me an email, you tag me on Facebook, however it is that you feel most comfortable communicating with me, I'm there for you. I work for you. We have tremendous challenges in Suffolk County. I'm asking for your vote to continue to address those challenges and to continue to fight for all of us. Thank you all very much for being here tonight. And thank you to the Bohemia Civic Association. Please thank everybody here for hosting this forum.
Are you still, you want me to still take?
Everybody wants to know, so.
Good night. Good night, Trish.
Thank you.